Aiden became her keeper, a guardian fueled by a desperate hope that the woman who had ventured with him into the forest's heart could be saved. The young herbalist watched with a broken heart as Elara oscillated between moments of lucidity where terror and regret filled her eyes, and dark periods of possession where she spoke in tongues, her voice weaving a symphony of temptation and despair as she conveyed the garden's desires. The elderfolk gathered, their aged faces bearing the lines of worry and deep-seated fear as they delved into ancient texts and lore in a frantic attempt to find a means to halt the impending doom. Forgotten rites were whispered in sacred halls, and contingents of brave souls were formed, ready to face the heart of darkness, the source of their village's deepest fears and most terrifying legends. The days were marked by a sense of urgency, the air thick with the smell of burning sage and chanting voices rising in desperate prayer. At night, the moon cast eerie shadows as grotesque forms seemed to flit and dance at the forest's edge, a growing tide of darkness conjured from the most profane recesses of the flesh garden, hungering to breach the sanctuary of human dwelling and claim flesh for the garden's burgeoning appetite. Amidst the terrifying occurrences, Elara and Aiden shared stolen moments of heart-wrenching intimacy, times when Elara, with tears streaming down her face, would grasp Aiden's hands, her grip fluctuating between tender and painfully tight as she fought the entity within, struggling to remain herself for just a few more moments. "I can feel it in my mind, Aiden, a darkness that wants to consume everything, everyone." Her voice trembled, broken with fear and self-loathing. I have seen what it plans. The village. It wants to..." Words escaped her, replaced by sobs as Aiden held her, his own eyes filled with tears, his heart breaking for her, for them, for their village. It was during one such fragile moment that they conceived a plan born of desperation and fleeting hope. They would venture once more into the garden's malevolent grasp, to find the heart of the entity that enslaved her mind and threatened their home. The forest, the malevolent entity. It wanted Elara, and she would be their weapon, their shield, as they ventured into the very maw of darkness. As they embarked on their perilous journey, guided by Elara's forced connection with the demonic garden, the village stood united in a fervent vigil, a collective breath held in anticipation and fear. Priests and priestesses chanted ceaselessly, their voices rising into the night sky as they prayed for protection, for victory over the malevolent force that sought to claim them. The path before Elara and Aiden was one of nightmare vistas and grotesque flora, a landscape morphing with each step, a pulsating, living entity that bore down on them with oppressive malice. Yet, amidst the horrifying tableau, there existed a perverse beauty, a siren song of seductive whispers that sought to ensnare their minds with visions of deepest desires and forbidden pleasures. With each step, the burden upon Elara grew, a cacophony of voices that sought to drown her consciousness, to break her will, and assimilate her into the garden's grotesque symphony of flesh and spirit. Aiden, his hand holding tightly onto Elara's, bore witness to her struggle, a battle waged within the soul, where love and self-sacrifice clashed with darkness and despair, forging a path of pain and determination through the garden's fleshy maw. Deeper they ventured, into the bowels of the living nightmare, where the air pulsated with the breath of the garden, a being ancient and corrupt, whose heart lay hidden amidst a cathedral of flesh and bone, a grotesque altar of pulsating organs and flowing rivers of blood. And as they stood before the grotesque heart of the garden, a maddening, writhing mass of flesh that pulsed with malevolent life, they understood the enormity of their task. There, in the darkness that bore down on them with oppressive force, Elara and Aiden would face the entity, a confrontation of wills in a place where fear bore fruit and darkness sowed its seeds in the garden of flesh. It was a place of finality, of desperate hope and sacrificial love, as they raised their weapons of faith and unity against the unspeakable evil that sought to claim their world. It was a battle for their very souls, waged in the depths of the flesh garden, where the price of failure was unimaginable horror and the loss of all they held dear. The grotesque cathedral of flesh pulsated ominously, an aberration of nature, as Elara and Aiden stood before the massive, writhing heart of the garden. Every beat echoed like thunder, reverberating through their bones, a constant drum reminding them of the life force that fueled this horrific entity.